Hi, Namaste Yogis. This is Suzanne DULIN. Welcome to Meet a Yogi. Today our special guest is Joe Roberson. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Nice to be back.
Yes, it's lovely to have you back. Today, Joe will be sharing with us breathing secrets, 3 easy ways to lift your mood. And I want to tell you a little bit about Joe, and then we'll start our conversation. So Joe has been practicing yoga since he was 14 years old and teaching since 1992. He started teaching about the time I actually started yoga, a little bit after that. He has run RY yoga teacher training programs and traveled to India and Thailand to study. He has his MFA in instructional design, and he's working with me on developing courses for sadhana. We have 4 courses in development, including Joe's course on coherent breathing, which is a breath technique. I don't know if we'll be talking about that tonight, but maybe you can mention it a little bit. And tonight, he's going to be sharing with us from his vast experience in breath techniques, which is really his specialty. After studying yoga for so many years, his studies have taken him in the direction of really working with pranayama, breath mastery techniques. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise with us, Joe, again.
Okay, and I see, I see, Lee, you said you may need to sign off in a few minutes, so that's a prod for me to say what's most important first. And so I'd like to start by saying that breath is the best, easiest, most economical access that anyone has to mood management, energy management, stress relief. That's why it's, traditionally breath has always been considered or called the bridge. And there's all kinds of scientific, physiological reasons for that. The main one that I want you to know is that breathing, unlike pretty much every other automatic process that goes on in your body, unlike your heartbeat, unlike your digestion, unlike all those other things, breathing is automatic and unconscious, and it can also be made voluntary and conscious. That's the magic ingredient that makes breathing different, and that makes breathing such a effective, useful, valuable tool for us to use for this kind of stuff. So that's like essential point number 1, why breath. Essential point number 2 is that, even though the 3 techniques that I'm going to share tonight are effective, there's one technique or one thing that always needs to come before you ever attempt to change your breathing, especially in an upset. I was just talking to someone else about this today, that there's, if you're just annoyed, if you're just feeling sleepy, if the emotional state of upset is mild, you have a much better chance of doing these techniques and changing your state, your mood, your emotion. Once, there's a certain point where it's really hard. You know, it's like you're on a runaway train, and only if you've been practicing diligently, you know, and it's kind of, it's in your back pocket and you can just think about it and do it. You know, beyond, when you're really, really, really upset, or, you know, when it's an extreme state, you should not expect for these things to magically stop that runaway train, okay? And that's why I always emphasize that the first thing, the main thing, the most important thing, number one, don't forget this one, okay, is that before you ever practice a technique, try to change how you're breathing, try to change your mood, that the first essential step is to observe how you're breathing, observe how you're feeling, and accept it. That is, by itself, that is probably the most powerful technique that I could give you. It's just, and it's a, you know, and I've talked about this before, you know, why is focusing on breathing, why is shifting your attention onto your breathing so powerful and so effective, even in an anxiety attack, even in a panic attack? Because basically because you cannot pay attention to your breathing and pay attention to the story, the runaway train, at the same time. So that the most important technique, and always the first thing, is observe how you're breathing. Try not to judge how you're breathing, because that's another story that'll make you even more anxiety and upset. Observe, so you're observing physically how you're breathing, and you're observing what you're saying to yourself about your breathing. That's horrible. I should be breathing more deeply. I shouldn't be breathing this way. You know, that's just another train, another car on the runaway train.
Yeah, we can complicate, the simplest thing,
Yes. So I wanted to get that out at the top, because that's always first. Observation and acceptance. And the other thing about focusing your attention on your breathing in the moment is that the runaway train, the monkey mind, the story in your head, whatever you want to call that head noise that fuels the train, so to speak, is that the runaway train, the thoughts are always, almost always, concerned with the past or the future. And focusing your attention on this inhale and this exhale and this inhale and that exhale, it's just another way of saying the same thing. It takes you off that train and brings you into, and as long as there's no real danger in your environment, then bringing your attention to your breathing will probably make you realize there's no real danger here. Why am I freaking out?
Yes,
it's always a story about the past or the future.
That when I focus on the past or on the future, that I feel that that's when that element of unkindness to myself tends to be more present. And that in the present moment, I find that there's just, it just is. There's not that the anxiety of looking toward the future or the criticism of looking at the past. And so it's interesting as I've been learning about this to learn that there's sort of letting go of the anxiety or the criticism, but there's also this other technique of bringing yourself right to the present, which just short circuits that aspect of the mind.
Yes. And again, just to reiterate, why is breathing the best way, the best thing to focus on? Because, and I've seen this one-on-one, with people that I've coached, is that even if you say something like, think about something pleasant, think about a beautiful flower, think about the beach, think about, you're trying to replace the runaway train with a positive thought or image. But the problem is that the mind takes that and twists it around and says, well, I can't do that. So then it's another, anyway, the point being simply that what works to defuse anxiety and depression is to get off the train. Is just get off the train, the stories, the self-criticism, why this, why that, and focusing attention on this inhale as it's happening, this exhale as it's happening. It's a body thing, it's physical. It's not something, it's not abstract. You don't have to think about it. You have to feel it. And that just makes it like an anchor. It anchors you down out of the upset. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So first of all, your points are, let me just see if I can summarize what you're saying, that the most important thing to remember, rather than any specific technique, is just to practice bringing your attention to the current breath, checking in and noticing your emotions, accepting them as they are before you try to shift anything, because in and of itself, just being present to your breath can be powerful and help you to bring some calm to yourself. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes. Observation and acceptance should always be the first thing to do. I know that, the advertisement said 3 techniques that'll do this, and we're going to get to those 3 techniques, but this comes before those 3 techniques. This really is the technique before all others.
And you spoke about that in another call, so I'm gonna just reference people to that call so that they can learn a little more about just that, the effectiveness of bringing your attention to the present moment, so that we can get to these other techniques that you're going to share with us today. I did want to ask you, I notice sometimes when I bring my attention to my breath, it'll start to lengthen, and that also seems to shift my mood. Is that something that you've noticed? Is that something that it's a way, like I noticed that, if I start to breathe rapidly, I start to feel anxious. If I slow my breathing down, I start to feel calmer. And then I also notice that when I focus on my breathing, that it typically will start to slow.
It's chicken or egg. You can do either one. And that's why this is the technique before all others. Another reason is because when you simply pay full attention to this inhale and this exhale, it is just that by itself is calming, because you know what's coming next. And I was just reading this, I just discussed, I found this research article on why uncertainty causes disease. I had never read it spelled out this clearly before. But basically, uncertainty, not only is it stressful, but it adds to your, they call it allostatic load. Uncertainty all by itself is a heavy-duty stressor. And when you simply follow your breathing, pay attention to your breathing, because your breathing is predictable, it instantly calms your brain. And because your brain starts calming, your breathing starts slowing down. And because your breathing starts slowing down, it calms your brain.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody put that together like that. What a powerful insight to know that your breath is certain. It's always going to be there with you. And so in this uncertain world, whenever you're feeling that, you can always return to this one thing that's just always present to you and always going to be the place that you can have like a refuge for yourself.
Yes, exactly. And it's your anchor, it's your touchstone, whatever word you want to use. And as we become more and more mental, intellectual, cyber, internet, the more this goes on, we're living in a man-made language world, head world, which makes this technique of anchoring to your breathing more and more necessary. When I started doing this stuff, the people who came to yoga classes like me were people who had this keen interest. You didn't get casual people just checking it out. But as the world becomes more complex and more uncertain and more cyber, for lack of a better word, this skill of mindfulness of breathing, I really honestly think that it needs to be taught to kids. And I just had this conversation on Sunday night at dinner with my friends in North Carolina. And I was talking about the book and and the parents said, well, we do that with our 5-year-old now, and it really works. And so all I'm saying is that I think it's becoming more necessary, more wanted, more more relevant. Maybe that's the right word.
The speed of our world increases, then we need more and more to be able to find this internal touchstone in order to keep us feeling safe. I would like to learn a little bit about these techniques that you brought to us, and you told me that they have to do with Ayurveda, and I have never heard you speak about Ayurveda, so I'm very curious to hear how they're tied together.
Yeah, I would like to back up one step though, because before we leave this subject of the first step is always observation and acceptance and just mindfulness, I would like to do a quick run through with everyone of how to create a tiny habit, with this being the habit of simple becoming mindfulness, okay? So this is, it's called the Tiny Habits Method. You know, I didn't make it up. I stole it from B.J. Fogg at Stanford. There are 3 steps. And this is like the easiest way I've ever seen for you to actually put this into your life starting tomorrow, all right? So, and you may want to write this down. Maybe we'll put that in the chat. Okay, so there are 3 steps. Number 1, choose the technique, choose your new habit. And the new habit is to stop and take 30 seconds to 1 minute to observe how you're breathing, observe how you're feeling, and accept it exactly as it is. That's all there is to it, okay? And if you just do that once a day, preferably 3 times a day, I think you'll be amazed at how effective just that little practice is in lowering stress levels, you know, all of it. So, number 1, you choose a technique. Our technique tonight is stop for 30 seconds to 1 minute and simply be conscious, aware, and accepting of how you feel, how you're breathing, and all of it. Number 2 is to choose a trigger. What makes this Tiny Habits formula work so well is that you take your new habit and you connect it to something you already do. All you're doing is you're adding a 1 minute little activity onto the end of something you already do. And those triggers can be simple little things that you do every day anyway, such as when you turn off the key to your car, when you finish tying your shoes, when you finish brushing your teeth, when you go to the bathroom. You know, it can be any of these little activities, routines you already do, and all you're going to do is choose one. You've got to choose one really specific trigger.
I picked washing my hands after I use the bathroom.
Okay. So wash your hands and follow it with 1 minute maximum. I'm not going to say maximum. It only takes 30 seconds. And for that 30 seconds or 1 minute, pause and just notice how you're breathing. Notice your mood, your energy. Notice what you say to yourself about what you're noticing. You know, this is good, this is bad, I can't do this. Or, you know, maybe you will say to yourself, oh, this is easy, I can handle this. Which brings me to number 3. So the third ingredient, the third part of creating your little tiny habit is choose a celebration, basically. It's like choose how you're going to pat yourself on the back each and every time you do your new breathing habit. And there are all kinds of ways of doing this. The only requirement is that it be something that you are comfortable with, that you would do, you know, when you feel really good, you know, yes. Or for me, sometimes I go, ding, that was easy. Okay. But that has to be something you want to do, that you like doing. And so if you'll do this tiny habit formula, starting tomorrow, do it for 7 days, and then come back and tell me what happened. Or, you know, email me, message, because I want to hear. I do want to hear.
Or you can put it in the comments below this too. We'd love to hear on the replays if you put in comments. I also want to let people know that we did do a whole call about these tiny habits, and I'll put the link below if you're interested in this. We go more in depth about this in a previous call, and I love tiny habits.
Okay. So now I'm hearing an echo. Is that? I think it just went away. Okay. All right.
My mic on mute when I'm not speaking, and I think what's happening is when I'm opening it up, then you're hearing the background noise of the computer.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the 3 techniques, and you know, I wasn't thinking about the gunas connection, the Ayurveda connection, until, I don't know, something online today that you said or somebody said. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we're not all interested in Ayurveda and gunas on this call. But all I want to say is that these 3 techniques correspond with what in Ayurveda are called the 3 gunas. And all that means is that you have these three energies or 3 states. One is fiery and energetic, you know, doing stuff. That's called rajas. The next one is tamas, which simply means, well, rajas, the fiery one, that's anxiety. Okay, when there's too much of that, that's when you feel overamped and anxious. The next one, tamas, is the dark, cool, sleep, eat, digest. It's the down part of your daily cycle to complement the up part of your daily cycle. And you know, the third one is sattva, which simply means the balance between the first 2.
What happens when there's an excess of tamas?
Depression, lethargy, lack of energy. You know, depression is tamas. Depression is tamas or tamasic, and anxiety is excess rajas. And the third one is sattva, which is balance. You know, like the yin yang has 2 black and white things. Well, there's actually a third thing, which is the balance of them. You know, so rajas and tamas, you know, so anyway, basically it's the 3 techniques.
Is there a sattvic, you know, an overly sattvistic possibility?
Yes. You know, it's called being too happy all the time.
being a fool or something like that.
Yeah, you know, having too much sattva, the easiest example I could give is, you know, it's like a person who never ever gets angry, even though they really should. That's too much sattva.
I've met people like that, you know, people who are a little too balanced. You know, people who are sort of cut off, I would say, is how I would describe that state of being cut off from your emotions.
Yes. Yes. I mean, anger, you know, anger is a vitally important emotion. It has its survival function, you know. So, you know, basically these 3 techniques, one is stimulating, and you should use that for depressive states to balance out the depressive state. Number 1 is the stimulating technique. Number 2 is the calming technique, which is what you should use when you have too much energy, you're too rajasic, there's too much fire, you're anxious. When you're anxious, use the opposite, calming technique. When you're
not sure if other people are seeing this, but Joe has, for me, has his recording. The feed is not coming through for him. So I'm just going to keep on talking until he comes through. And what I'm going to do is just repeat what we've been talking about, because he's been giving some fairly, several different new ideas. So the first, there are 3 gunas of Ayurveda: Rajas, which is the anxiety; Tamas, which is the movement toward depression when it's too much; and then Sattva, which is balance, and that can, in its excess, be being cut off from anger. So he is suggesting that he's going to give us 3 different techniques, and they are going to help us to balance out these different excesses that can happen in the body. So one technique will bring, when you're anxious, will bring you to calm. One technique, when you are depressed, will help to elevate your mood. And then the third technique is where, when you're cut off, and it will help you to tap into your fire. And so I saw his picture go off, which means that he's temporarily come out of the call, and then I'm just waiting for him to come back in. So obviously his connection there is bad. We're having some storms going on. So while I'm waiting for him to come back on, and I'm seeing him come back in now. So Joe, I see you coming back in, and I just gave a summary, a recap of the techniques, and I am unmuting you and putting your camera on, and we can start again.
Sorry about that.
How are you?
I'm fine. I moved my computer and I forgot to plug in the power supply.
That would be a wonderful way. That would be like the perfect little tiny habit. When your computer goes wonky, that's a perfect time to do your little tiny habit. That's like check in.
Yeah, that means I'll be doing it, how many times a day?
That when you came back in, Windows said, "Oh, I need to update your computer right this moment." So I gave a little recap. Actually, it was serendipitous, I think, because I got to recap the points that you gave. It was great that I've been taking notes for people on the chat. We have the notes, and we'll put some notes in into the description of this video on YouTube as well. So Joe, now you're going to get to our 3 techniques. And I described, I wasn't quite sure because you cut out on the last one, but I sort of improvised that for the sattvistic, when you have an excess of balance, that you would have a technique that would raise the fire. Is that correct, that is where you would go?
Yes, because basically, having too much balance, or, being too happy, you become kind of like a limp rag. In these 3 qualities, 3 gunas, you always have to start from rajas. You always have to add enough. There has to be enough energy present to do something with, right? So yes, if you get a fantastic Thai massage, body work, whatever, sauna, and you're so blissed out you can't even think, then do the stimulating breath. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So I would love to hear what these specific techniques are. And in fact, it's interesting to me, I just have to say, because I get to be on every single call that we do here. And we have been having calls over the past year. But it's so amazing to me to be putting together all of the things that I've been learning here on the Media Yogis. And in the time that I've been reading your book, helping you with your course, and you've been just in touch with me and coming on the Media Yogis, I haven't really heard you talk about any other technique other than the coherent breathing and checking in with your breath, these very simple techniques. So I'm excited to learn a little about these sort of next level techniques.
Okay, so you know, these three techniques, they're really three categories, because there are many different breathing techniques you can do for calming. There are many you can do for stimulating. There are many you can do for balancing. And some of the techniques work for 2 or 3 of the needs, okay? Suzanne, would it be easy for you to put that PDF on screen?
Yes, give me one moment to pull it up, and I will display the PDF that you sent me.
Okay.
So, he sent me a document, and we'll share it with everybody in the group. We'll put it in the files, and we'll put a link to it in the description.
Yeah. You know, at some point, I was trying to explain, you know, what the heck are gunas, because even if you know about Ayurveda, most people know about the doshas, which are the physical symptoms of imbalance, kind of like the humors. But the gunas are the mental constitution elements. They're more subtle. But anyway, I was trying to figure out how to explain them. And then it hit me. Winnie, Tigger, and Eeyore. You know?
Great. Okay, I'm going to share this. On my screen so you can see it, the whole thing. Here we go. Okay, this is cool. This is our first on Media Yogi. We have graphics. So can everyone see? Can you see it now? Can you see?
I can see it, but there's a dark rectangle across the page.
Oh, okay. I know what that is. Hang on. It's my. It probably won't come over on the recording. Is that done? Did it fix it?
That's good enough.
Okay, good. It was the toolbar.
Yeah. So the yellow is the sattvic, which basically means balanced, happy, poised, you know, like Winnie, a positive attitude, a positive mindset, a positive outlook on life. The middle one, Rajasic, the red one, Tigger, is full of energy, get her done, but when it goes too far, it becomes anxiety and manic. And then the bottom one, Tamasic, is Eeyore, because it's lethargic and sleepy and dull and depressed. So, you know, if you look, 1, 2, 3, got weird numbers in there. I don't know how that happened. Then, yeah, ignore those numbers. So the balancing, the sattvic, the yellow at the top, those are the balancing techniques. Alternate nostril breathing, Sudarshan Chakra Kriya, coherent breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. The Rajasic is stimulating, red. The techniques are, well, okay. The techniques are the opposite, okay? So if you want to feel less Rajasic, less anxious, manic, rude, or aggressive, or angry, then you do these techniques: calming 4-7-8, alternate nostril, diaphragmatic, or satali. And if you want to feel less tamasic, which means depressed, sleepy, dull, then you counter it with kaphlabhati, breath of fire, sudarshan, diaphragmatic breath. So you can see diaphragmatic breath is in all 3 of them.
I want to pop in here and let people know. So this is a lot. I know you're not going to teach us all of these. This is part of the reason why we're developing courses, because we can teach you so much in a call like this, but we can do more in a structured course. So we have 2 structured courses. One is Joe's on coherent breathing, and that one's coming up in a little bit. But there's one coming up quite soon with Catherine Kerrigan, who is going to come on soon, I hope. And she teaches about half of these techniques in her course. And that one's called 8 Breaths to Inner Peace. So I just want to let you know, if you're interested in learning more, that we do have a structured course coming out with a very simple routine that you do in 8 minutes that goes through 8 different breathing techniques, many of which are listed here.
Yeah. So right now, for each of these 3 categories, we're only going to talk about one for each, okay? And I would like to actually start with the middle, because I think anxiety is, I don't really know, but I'm guessing that anxiety is the most popular, popular is a weird word to use here, but the most relevant to the most people. So for anxiety, if you want to feel less anxious, then calming 4-7-8 breath is always my #1 choice when I teach somebody how to do a calming breath. That's a little too complicated to teach right now, so I'm gonna give a simplified version. Okay. So the simplified version of a calming breath is that you take a comfortably deep breath. It doesn't have to be a big breath, but you want to take a full inhale and you want to hold it for a moment, a few seconds. And the main deal is the exhale. For it to be calming, you're going to exhale through your mouth, and it's going to be like a tremendous let go sigh of relief. You're going to relax your jaw muscles, you're going to relax your mouth, and it's sort of, so let me give a little demonstration. So it's an inhale. And you want that exhale to be long and delicious. So in a nutshell, that's the calming breath.
We did this all the time in my Kripalu yoga class.
Yeah?
Yeah, there was a lot of times we would start the class with a big sigh.
Yeah. I learned it. Dan Brule, I met him at the Kripalu conference on breath. He calls it the let go method. He just calls it let go. And I'm paraphrasing how he teaches it. But basically, the emphasis is just on taking a delicious inhale, feeling it, holding it just for a moment, and then, I mean, all you got to remember is it's let go, okay? And one of the reasons it works is because the exhale, whenever you make the exhale longer than the inhale, it tends to be calming. Whenever you make the inhale longer than the exhale, it tends to be stimulating. That's kind of the basic principle.
Because even if you don't remember the formal techniques, you can kind of make your own.
Yes, yes. As long as you understand the principle, emphasize the exhale if you want to calm, emphasize the inhale if you want to stimulate, okay? Make them even if you want to balance, to be more sattvic, okay? So that's the calming technique. Is that good enough? For calming?
If anybody's having any questions about this calming technique, I'm going to reiterate so I can make sure that I heard it. Because in speaking, I think it's important to sort of repeat sometimes for people to hear. And so what I'm hearing is that the basic principle of calming is to take a longer exhale than you take an inhale. And that specifically this let go technique is to make a big sigh on the exhalation, kind of take a nice breath in and then, just let it all go.
Yeah, and the the more you get your body involved, the more effective it is.
We had a question, a good question actually. Why not exhale through your nose?
Because a couple of reasons. The number one reason would be that your jaw muscles, we're still, we're animals. We're still animals. And biting is a very instinctive reflex that goes along with anxiety. And so by breathing through your mouth, you release the jaw muscles and any tension around the mouth.
I carry tension, and I know a lot of people even will, when they're sleeping, they continue to do that chewing motion.
Yep, TMJ. Yep, TMJ. Okay, moving on.
Yes.
Stimulating breath. Okay, so again, I'm going to just give you a very boiled down, simplified version of stimulating breath, because it's too much to teach in 5 minutes. And I usually, this comes from a technique called kaphlabhati. And I usually teach kaphlabhati as the first step in learning how to do diaphragmatic breathing. Okay?
This one is one of the ones in Catherine's course, so if people are interested in that.
Which, diaphragmatic or kaphlabhati?
Kaphlabhati.
Yeah.
Can you pronounce that again? Because I always pronounced it kaphlabhati, and you're saying, can you say it again? Because it's
Kaphlabhati.
Oh, that sounds more official to me. I always say it the Southern, Southern Sanskrit.
I would declare that that's the official, not that I know for sure. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but kaphlabhati, and I don't know where I got that from.
Okay. One of us could be correct. We need a Sanskrit expert on. I actually have a Sanskrit expert on that we can tap into sometime. Alrighty. So
I know more. I know more about the basic principle and why it does what it does.
Okay.
So
this technique is a heating breath, and it is for raising your energy if you're depressed
or sleepy. If you're driving and you just can't find a coffee shop or a 7-Eleven, do this breath.
Yeah, this breath could save your life.
Yes. All right. So, in essence, the basic thing. The basic thing is that when you exhale, you are going to squeeze more air out. You're going to emphasize a longer exhale like we did before, but the difference here is that you squeeze more air out. In the calming technique, you drop it. You just let it fall out, okay? But in the stimulating technique, you exhale and then you squeeze more air out by drawing your navel into your belly as if you were going to touch, like if this is my spine and this is let me get the finger in the right place. So this is my navel and this is my back. I'm going to exhale and exhale, squeeze, 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 as if I were going to touch my spine with my navel. Does that carry? Does that make sense?
Exactly. And I have done this one, and I would say basically it's like you're just really sucking your gut in very quickly. And,
okay.
and up a little bit.
I'm going to stop you. Sorry. I'm
okay.
Going to stop you there. It does end up being quick, but not right now. Because, many people have a little bit of trouble accessing this movement and accessing this muscle.
I have a cool tip for this.
Yeah, okay.
And I was going back and reading Donna Farey's book on breathing. She has a wonderful book on breathing. And she has this in here. If you just kind of snap your fingers right over your belly, there's a reflexive movement of your diaphragm, a jump. And just try it out. You'll see it'll make you find your diaphragm.
Another little trick is just to put your hands on your stomach. Put your hands on your stomach like this, and touching your fingers over your navel. And then when you inhale, your fingers will separate slightly. And when you exhale, you want to bring your fingers together as you draw your navel back, as you suck it in or draw it in, pull it in, whatever you want to call it. You're using your core muscles. You're using your core muscles to squeeze more air out. And this does a couple of different things.
I have a question from the chat. So Karen wanted to know, is it like pumping your stomach in and out?
Yes, it is. It is. It's belly pumping breath. I just hesitate to use the word pumping because for someone who's never done this or other breath work, any kind of breath work, I don't want you to think that you have to do this fast. But yes, it is pumping the belly. The movement is exactly the same. But if you're brand new to all this stuff, all this, breathwork techniques, do it slowly. Just practice slowly exhaling more. See how empty you can make yourself of air. And then you can speed it up once it gradually speeds itself up. It becomes faster after you get the knack of the movement.
Am I correct in saying that the reason that you're saying that it's harder to access this is that what's challenging is isolating the diaphragm?
No. No, this has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with isolating your diaphragm. That's even further down the road. The reason it might be difficult is, number one, weight. If you haven't been exercising, if your core muscles are weak or tight, you wear tight clothing, and so you're just not used to using these core muscles. And also just because most people have never done this before. Why would is there anywhere else where you do this action? I can't think of, except suck in your gut.
When you suck in your gut, a lot of people do that really unconsciously, and so they have a hard, like you can do it consciously, but for a lot of people, it's such an unconscious action that it's unclenching their gut that is the challenge.
Right. One of the best ways to learn to unclench your gut is by clenching the hell out of it. It's like it's almost like it's locked in the tense mode, and you can't just say to it, okay, let go now. It just won't, because it's in this habit of being clenched all the time. And sometimes what works better is to really work it, is to contract it even more and tire it out so that it lets go afterwards.
Interesting that once again we're hearing that letting go, but just in a different, kind of a different focus of where the letting go is now in your belly. We had a request.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that the stimulating breath is not a let go technique. I mean, yes, you do have to let go of tension, whatever, to get it to do it, but the technique itself is a vigorous technique.
We actually had a request for a demo of this, and also a demo of it versus another technique that we haven't talked about, which is very similar, called Bastrika. So could you demonstrate kaphlabhati, what you're talking about, and then show us this other technique, Bhastrika?
You want me to undress on camera?
Da-da-da. Do I give you a little music for that?
Okay.
I just have to, while you're doing this, I just have to tell you, growing up in Alabama, there was this radio commercial that was on when I was a kid, where they would do the bump and grind music. It was for a local strip club, and it's like playing in my head right now.
All right, so is that enough?
Okay.
There's the navel, yeah? So basically, and I can do a very good watermelon, you know, this is a little embarrassing, but you know, anything for my students. So what I'm saying is that, you know, and especially if you're a chest breather, an upper body breather, this might be very different. So when you exhale, you want to move this all the way back, and then inhale, let it go. Exhale all the way in, let it go. And then once you learn the basic action, then it does start to speed up. So it starts to be more like, okay. Did that?
That one's kaphlabhati, and you're
Yes.
demonstrating the action. And so what I saw is that you're sort of, you know, first of all, slowly contracting your abdominal muscles in toward your spine, and then just letting go of all the effort. And then you sped up the action, focusing on just contracting over and over again and quickly releasing. Is that a good description of it?
Yes. The exhale is active and vigorous. The inhale is passive and relaxed. The exhale is the passive. The exhale is the active thing.
And the exhale is when you're bringing your abs in. So and then we have this question about that versus Bhastrika, which is a similar technique. So how does it differ?
They're more alike than they are different. And I want to gloss over this question because I don't want to get lost in the weeds of distinguishing, because depending on who you studied with, depending on which school, depending on there's a lot of crossover. Some people use kaphlabhati and breath of fire to mean the same thing. Some people use belly breathing and diaphragmatic breathing to mean the same thing. And the other reason is that, frankly, I've never taught Bhastrika much, so I'm not an expert on Bhastrika.
Have that one in Catherine's course. I'll double check it while we're waiting. And then I also want to say that we had a question about whether this is done in and out through the nose.
Nose, yes, but kaphlabhati through the nose, in and out through the nose. You know, and the basic principle, unless otherwise instructed, you know, it's always more important to breathe in through your nose. Breathing out, it matters less whether it's nose or mouth, as a generality. And, you know, don't take that too literally. That's usually that's the case. Breathing in through the nose has, you know, that's more important than whether you breathe out through your nose or your mouth. Okay. And I just want to end about stimulating that, why it works. Just two quick reasons why it works. Number one, the number one reason is that it gets your diaphragm moving. Because one of the biggest things with depression, in my experience anyway, I've experienced it over and over again, is that the state of depression, and the diaphragm is literally depressed. The diaphragm stops moving as much as it normally does. So the diaphragm literally becomes depressed. And when you do this kaphlabhati belly pumping thing, breath, it gets your diaphragm moving again. And that's a big part of why it's so effective.
Wow, that's really interesting. Is that your observation, or is this, I know you've been doing a ton of research on breath as you've been writing your book on coherent breathing. Is this something that you've read, or is this, you said it was from your observation?
I want to, you know, at this point, I really don't know. Half of the stuff I'm not sure whether I read it somewhere or not, but I want to say that it's really from my own experience and my own practice.
I mean, just knowing that alone is worth the price of admission tonight.
It can make a huge difference if you just understand that just getting your diaphragm moving can lift a depressed mood state or a low energy state, just like that. And I'm just cognizant of the fact that it's almost 10 after 10 already. The balancing technique is simply basically coherent breathing, or even breathing in yoga is called samarvriti, same. It just means inhaling and exhaling the same time, balancing inhale and exhale at a slow, deep pace, okay? And like I said, there are all kinds of techniques that are balancing techniques. Coherent breathing is an easy one because all you need to do coherent breathing is to inhale for 4 to 6 seconds and exhale for 4 to 6 seconds, which is a pretty slow pace. I mean, it eventually ends up being at a pace of 5 breaths per minute, which is a lot slower than most people breathe. So I always say, don't create more anxiety by trying to force yourself to breathe that slowly off the bat. So start where you are, accept your breathing at whatever rate you're breathing at, and then gradually slow it down with the goal, eventually, of breathing 12 seconds in, 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, 12-second breath cycle, 5 breaths per minute, okay? That's coherent breathing, and that is a excellent balancing practice. And actually, coherent breathing will stimulate you when you need it, calm you when you need it. You know, it's another one of those there isn't a bad time to do it.
Speed this right up for us, because rather than taking the time to teach it, we can give it to everybody for free. Joe has generously put out a beautiful version of this that he recorded with Ty Ford, who is a musician who is an expert in developing music for energy. And I didn't say that very well, but he writes music, healing music.
He's a healer.
He is a healer. His music is healing, and he's really studied it. And it's on this free app called the Insight Timer. Go to the App Store, download it. It's free, and it's a wonderful app. It has thousands of meditations in there, as well as a little timer that you can use just to develop your own timing sequences for whatever meditation you're doing. And in there, search for either Joe Roberson or Coherent Breathing. I believe I checked the other day, and there was 2,000 times that people have used this so far. And I think you only had it up for about 4 months or so. It's wonderful. It's beautifully recorded, and you can just follow along. It's very easy to follow along. So rather than teach it, I'm going to encourage everybody to go get the app and just try it out.
Yep. And just want to quickly say, just go on Insight Timer, type in Coherent Breathing Symphony is its official title, Coherent Breathing Symphony. And there are 3 tracks. Number 1 is just a 2-minute track that explains coherent breathing. The second track is 9 minutes long, and you'll hear my voice, inhale, exhale, like that. And then the third track is 25 minutes, only music, and a chime every 6 seconds to remind you to inhale and exhale, with no words in the long version. So I see my curtain moving. My cat's starting to.
It's getting a little restless because we're running a little long, and I want to make sure that everybody here who's been so patient and stayed on the call gets a chance for us to open up the mics and talk. I did check that the bus streak is included in the 8 minutes to inner peace, which will be rolling out within a month. And so if you're interested in the breathing techniques, some of these breathing techniques we talked about, we will be having a course coming out with an expert talking about these techniques in a very accessible way. And then Joe has the timer that you can download now, and he is working on a course for us, and he's writing a wonderful book. I've had the privilege of reading sections of it. It's very good. And it's on this specific breathing technique, coherent breathing. Joe, was there anything more that you want to say on this subject to wrap it up a little bit? And then also, would you please let us know how people can follow you on the internet?
I'll do the second one first. The easiest way, I suppose, to find me is to, if you're on Facebook, there's a Facebook page called One Breath at a Time. There's also a Facebook group called Breathing Community, the Breathing Community. I have a website also called the Breathing Community, but since everybody's on Facebook, that tends to be where I put stuff as well. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to, connect with me. As far as saying the final thing to wrap up, breath work, the breath work and appreciation for the practicality and the effectiveness. All I'm really trying to do is to add my 2 cents worth to what a lot of people are saying is really the next big thing. That like yoga kind of hit the US by storm when Rodney Yee appeared on the Oprah Winfrey show, whatever the year that was. I'm really hoping
Donna and Sting started doing it.
Yeah. I'm hoping that breath, what it is that I'm sharing, I hope that it's about to pop, about to people are, that more and more people are going to just come to understand what a powerful, free, natural, tool that we have that should be taught to kids, should be provided, this kind of training should be provided to first responders and police and soldiers and college students and, anybody else who breathes.
I just want to say that if anybody found this at all confusing, we did a previous call on the tiny habits where Joe really just talked about the importance of just connecting to your breath and how that alone is very powerful. So the things that we're talking about today, they're kind of next level, and they're useful for working with your mood, but you can also, just by checking in with your mood, that has a big effect as well. And so I just want to reference people to that. And I'll put it into the description for the replay, because I really do want people to understand that first step that you spent so much time on in this call, that we really talked a lot specifically about that technique, and that's really a lot about what you're writing your book on. I think that when you become a very good teacher like Joe is, which is what the sadhana community is about, it's about becoming excellent. Too many people are feeling alone in their work as they become very good at what they do. And when you become an excellent teacher, then what you do is you can just boil it down to the simplicity, which is what I think Joe has just done a wonderful job of doing, showing us like, okay, there's all these ways you can manipulate your breath. It's cool. But ultimately, the biggest thing is just find your breath when you need it. So you there?
I'm here.
I want to wrap up. First of all, before I stop the recording, I want to let everybody know that you should stay on the line, and we'll open up the mics for everybody to talk. So when you attend live, you get to talk a little bit with us. On the replay, if you're watching on the replay, please hit like, please hit share, please subscribe. All of these things help more people to see the videos. It's just a little game that we have to play to beat the algorithms of Facebook and YouTube. So please do that for us. We want to get the word out about what we're doing. And we also want to invite everybody to come into the sadhana community for yoga teachers and yoga enthusiasts on Facebook. Join us. Joe's there. I'm there. And many other experts are there. And we're all just talking about how we can help everybody elevate the conversation and push each other to become very excellent in our work, so that as we become very focused in a specific area, that we feel supported in that. Because as you get to be so good at what you do, you start to feel like you don't have a tribe. You have a tribe, and the tribe is here at Sadhana. Please join us. Joe, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge. I just want to say thank you. And it's been a pleasure watching you over time. I'm learning so much from these calls with you, which was something unexpected to me.
Thanks for making me talk.
I'm very happy to. And if anybody wants to talk, just get in touch with me and we'll put you on. We're booking way out now. Okay, Joe, thank you again. We're going to close out the recording. Please stay on the line.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.